Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this case comes out of Australia. A very sad case that there definitely been two sides to whether this fellow's guilty or not guilty. He was driving to drop off the kids at his estranged wife's house, and on the way, his car veered off the road, went into this little butt of water back here, and the kids drowned, and he got out. He has been convicted twice, but many people think he's innocent, but he's still in prison. So I'm going to get into that. I want to ask if everybody can see me. I saw a couple of glitches as I was people in the chat room. Can you see me? Yeah, I already saw some weird glitches. Do you see those glitches? I look what? Oh, wintry. Yeah, I put this on because it was really cold in my house. But are you seeing glitches here? You don't see the glitches? All right. Okay. I saw a couple times when I looked like I was doing that, thing. So, all right. Well, I shall go on. But if I have to, oh yeah, there's no glitches. All right. If it gets worse, and I'm going to keep my eye on you over here in the chat room. If you see that it gets worse because I've been having the Verizon troubles, the internet has not been doing well, so I don't trust it. So either it could just suddenly shut down, or you could say I'm glitching all over the place, and which case I will stop it and I will restart it. I'll send you a message, and I'll restart it in 10 minutes after I shut it down. So let's hope I don't have to do it. But anyway, welcome everybody. I have to take off my glasses to read. Something's going wrong with my sight too. All right. So Sarah says she hates drugs, Verizon, and her cat. No, I loved my cat. He was a terrible cat, but I loved him. I'll be fair about this. So anyway, Michaela is here, Jill is here, Sarah's here, Lisa N is here. Some people can actually be here from Australia and New Zealand because it's actually morning for them. There were a couple of flickers. Okay. We'll see if the flickers keep on. Very annoying when that happens because it usually means something's wrong with the transmission. And then I need to really start over because I don't want to do that. But anyway, welcome everybody who's here. So, I don't trust Verizon, so I don't think I'll go through long introductions today. Anyway, really interesting case. And I want to show you, let me read the very short Wikipedia thing on it. So anybody who's here for the first time hearing about this case, and especially if you're not from Australia, might not really know the case, although this is big for Australia. So let me just read you the short bit. Ronald Donald William Farquharson, and I hope I pronounced his name correctly, is an Australian man convicted of murdering his three sons on 4th of September in 2005 by deliberately driving his car into a farm dam. That one there. Farquharson was convicted in an earlier trial and was sentenced to life imprisonment with no minimum term. However, he maintained his innocence and appealed his sentence. On December 17, 2009, he won the right to a retrial. And this is kind of, retrials fascinate me in the sense that I believe if you're going to appeal, you should get, and they go for it, you should get the retrial. But some of the things they appeal for are so minimal. And when you think of, I'm going to read you something from one book of what the jury went through on that first trial, that torture they went through, then it had to be done all over again. And another group of people had to be tortured. So this is why he got the right to a retrial. One is because there's this guy named Greg King who's a witness for the prosecution. Now, he said not very good things about this guy. They were buddies, and I'll get to that later, but they were buddies. But he said, hey, he said some things about kind of not wanting to do the kids in to get back at his wife. And he was very disturbed about what he had heard from him, and he testified to that. But apparently, somewhere around that time, he got in like a bar fight or something really stupid and minimal. He was facing potential criminal charges at the time of the original trial. So basically, the defense is saying, hey, if the jury had known that this Greg King dude, he's got behavior problems himself, how do we know we can believe them? So based on that, and also they claim that the judge didn't say something correct to the jury when he's telling them, what they have to consider and all that. I think were two very, my opinion, such minor things, but he got a retrial. He was released on bail in December, and then he got like a year at home and was convicted again of murder in July 2010. So didn't go well the second time around either. So he's still in prison. So now I'm just going to check to see if you're still seeing me here. Everybody's still seeing me? All right. So, Michaela doesn't like him, but I won't put your comment up on the screen. So let me go to the two books I read. And this was really quite an interesting experience. The first book I read is by an Australian author. Her name is Helen Garner. She wrote this book called This House of Grief. She attended the trials. And I'm going to link that, both books below that I read. She's a great writer. A lot of times when I read books, especially true crime things, I'm not all that interested with half the crap that's in there. And the writing is, just general writing. She is what you would call an author. She has great ability to describe something I lack. And I just really enjoyed her book. Even if you weren't that interested in the actual case, you'd enjoy her writing. It was fantastic. And she leaned toward his guilt. She had times when she said, maybe not. But one of the things she points out a lot in her book is what happened in the courtroom, the whole thing about the jury system, which I just think is phenomenal. Let me read you one piece of it because I just think it's really interesting. So one of his defense attorneys is up there and for 3 days is going on about how the car went down the hill into the dam. All about the tracks, tire things and everything. Days and days of this, right? And she said, came to the point by the close of the third week of the trial. This went on it was more than 4 weeks. So 5 weeks, 6 weeks, somewhere around there. The jurors glazed over and turned sullen. They rested their chins on their fists. Their eyelids drooped. Their necks grew loose with boredom. They were limp with it, barely able to hold themselves erect. Once I glanced over and saw 4 of them in a row, their heads dropped into the same protesting angle toward their left shoulders, like tulips dying in a vase. I think that's just a great line, like tulips dying in a vase, which depends how you say it. What a great picture in the mind. And what these people had to go through. Oh my gosh. I said, my heart goes out to all juries. I'm against the civilian jury system, but I'm not against the jurors themselves for what they have to put up with. It's crazy. So anyway, her book is very beautifully written, takes you through all the trials. If you really want a good book to read, that's a good one. And it's fascinating, all the different things that go on and what everybody's dealing with. It's just really well written. And then I read this other book. This is a self-published book, as you can tell by the crappy cover, Road to Damnation, The Wrongful Conviction of Robert, I forgot his name again, I can't pronounce it, Farquharson. Pronounce the guy's name. And this guy's name is Chris Brook. And hey, before I go on, I completely forgot. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot to do due diligence. Hold on 1 second before I get to his book. Because, I always find if you don't remind people to subscribe to the channel, they don't do it. They forget about it. So if you're here watching and you haven't subscribed before, please do subscribe. It supports the channel. Really needed. Click for the video. Click the bell for notifications and check my playlist for other cases that you might be interested in. If you'd like to be in the chat room during the live section, please do join Patreon. Click below. There are 8 lives a month you can participate in, and other ways to support the channel. I have my books below, and there's always a little $ you can click on. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I completely forgot about that to get to this case, but I don't want to forget about it because the channel needs to survive. All right. Let me go to the other book, and then I'll go on to what happened in this case. Road to Damnation, Chris Brook. He is a scientist, and his whole book is about the evidence that was put forth in the trial and that it was not scientific. And he pretty much goes to all the wrong things that go wrong in trials with the way evidence is presented or not presented or wrongly presented or presented by a prosecution and defense. And if it's scientific, he's like, if it was truly scientific, how can they be at totally opposite camps? Wouldn't science put them in the same camp? And I've always thought that was interesting. He destroys a lot of people's belief in things like blood spatter pattern, gunshot, all these gunshot, like ballistics, a lot of things that supposedly are totally scientific, but come down a lot of times to opinion. And so that's very interesting. So I'm going to go through some of his concepts on that because I think this is very true. And in this case, there was a lot of those issues in it. And the question is, who do you believe and what do you believe? And then how does this jury figure it out? And I just want to point out that by the time I finished his book and reading his defense of this fellow with all the scientific stuff, this is my field. And I was so exhausted. And I was like, my brain had died. And I'm like, I don't even know what I think anymore. Now, if I were on that jury, hearing that come out of the mouths of different people week upon week, without being able to take notes, without being able to say, okay, I want to take this information and go sit here and ponder it. Like a lot of the things he wrote. Well, unfortunately, I read that book today. I could have postponed this whole thing and come back in a year after I spent 40, 80 hours going through it. And then after I go through his information, then I have to go check elsewhere to get more information because I can't necessarily believe his information, right? So it becomes a long journey to determine where the truth is scientifically on certain issues. But this doesn't happen in a courtroom. The jury just comes in. Whatever they say, they have not a clue because I'm having trouble with it. And this is a jury that has no training. So it's craziness. So this case is not so open and shut as one would imagine. The heavier group lies on this guy just drove his kids in there to kill him. But there is a blurry area. And I'm going to get to that because I think it's what should have happened in that court of law. What should the verdict have been? And I'm not even sure. I'll figure that out by the time I get to the end of this this video. But it's there's a lot of stuff that's so much information. So I want to talk next about what? I just wanted to know there's no $sign. That's because we're here, this is unlisted at the moment. That $sign only comes up later when this is listed for the public. So yeah, you can't, but the people watching it later can. So yeah, oh yeah. Well, there you go. Molly said it right there. When I make it public, right? It's not public in the beginning, but all my videos do become public. So you don't have to join Patreon to see them. I don't have any hidden videos, because I want everybody to see everything. All right, so let's go to, I want to read you from this, from the guy who is defending him. I want to read you from his book, a little bit of his first chapter about what happened. So it was Father's Day, and he wasn't supposed to have the 3 children. He is estranged from his wife. Well, maybe I should give you the quick background on that. Okay, let me go to Wiki and give you the quick background. Where is it? He married a woman named Cindy Gambino. They had 3 sons together, but their relationship had soured. She was not happy, and they had separated. All right. So, and she had, after the separation, she had known some fellow prior to the separation, but claims they were not in a relationship. After the separation, she and that fellow hooked up and became a couple. So he wasn't in a good mood. All right. He wasn't doing well in life. But he wasn't supposed to have the kids on Father's Day weekend, but something came up. So she said, hey, why not drop the kids over? And he was like, oh, that's cool. So she did. And then he was driving the children back to her house. All right. Let me see if I can read that spot here about, where Where is it here? Okay, a sec. All right, here it's a 7 p.m. He was at 7 p.m. So it was dark as I'm going to call him Robert because I never pronounce his last name. As Robert was returning his children to their mother after a Father's Day access visit. His white 1989 VN Commodore vehicle veered across the Princess Highway. Okay, let me see. I think I've got pictures of that. Here is the location. So he's coming down. He's coming down the road. Now, let me explain to some people that he's driving on the left side if you're not living in Australia. So left side, right? Right, guys? So he's coming down the road and he ends up veering off the road, across the road. And then he crashes through a fence, comes to rest in a farm dam where it filled with water and submerged. Okay, so here's another picture of that. And here's another picture of that. All right. And so essentially he went in there and these three children couldn't get out of the vehicle, but he managed to get out of the vehicle. All right. Of course, he is an adult, so an adult is going to have an easier time escaping a vehicle that is submerged and filling up with water. So that's possible. So at any rate, after that happened, so he did manage to escape. They did recover the boys' bodies the next day. They were still inside the vehicle and not restrained by seatbelts. So supposedly they always put their seatbelts on, and that one of them was in a car seat, was like a 2-year-old. So it's hard to imagine that one of those kids actually managed to get a seatbelt off and unbuckle the other kid too, because he was quite young in the back seat, and the other one was in the front seat supposedly. And that's the basic story. So he's driving back. He's fairly close to his estranged wife's house when the car goes off the road for whatever reasons. And this is what the whole issue is about. I mean, it's not questioning. There's no question that the car went off the road and went in here and to kill children and drown. The question is why the car went off the road. Did it go off the road for some reason that was not his fault? Or did he purposely drive the car off the road into the water to kill the children? Or maybe himself, maybe it was a suicide attempt, but then he freaked and got out of the car. So those are the possibilities. Now, I want to read you from this book because it just gives you kind of a feeling. Now, this is, again, from sort of the defense point of view. But I think it's interesting because he had actually spoken. The guy who wrote the book had spoken with him. So, and he had read everything. So I'm assuming this is close to what his claim was, a little bit dramatized. It is pitch black. Jay, that's the older boy, and it's Jai, so I'm assuming it's Jay, is shaking him. Daddy, daddy. He is dazed at the wheel. Now, let me say what the reason was. He claimed, well, he said two things. One is that something might have gone wrong with the vehicle, so it went off the road because of something. I forgot what the term is now. It'll show up later in here. That it caused the car to go off the road. But then he said, "But no, I had a coughing fit, and I passed out, blacked out from a coughing fit." Now that's the story he sticks with, because if it were the other issue of something wrong with the car, just losing that, something going wrong with the car steering, he would have been awake through the whole thing. He would have known exactly how the car went off the road down the hill. So he says that first to the emergency people. He states that to them, but then he says, or the coughing fit, I blacked out. And the fact that he said both of them is kind of interesting. But let's go with he blacked out, because this is supposedly his defense forever, is he had a coughing fit and he had what's called syncope, and he went unconscious. And therefore the car just veered off the road. It is pitch black. Jay is shaking him. Daddy, daddy. He is dazed at the wheel. He starts to feel around. We are off the road, he thinks. Must be in a ditch. But then Jay starts to open the passenger door and water starts rushing in. He reaches over Jay and shuts the door quickly. The car lurches left. The kids are yelling now. Just settle, he says. I'm going to try to get you all out of here. And he said, use out of here. Use all out of here. He starts to follow the routine for taking the kids out of the car. And in the defense of him, there's a claim that he was a very routine oriented person. So therefore, even if he woke up from unconsciousness, he would, and not realize he was in the water, he would start to do what he thinks you just normally do. Get out, go around the car and grab Bailey out of his baby seat. Then Tyler will jump over the baby seat and Jay gets out the front door. Routine. He turns off the engine because this is true. The engine, the key was turned off. And I want to get your point of view in a little bit why you think somebody would do this. Turns off the engine and the headlights before he gets out of the car. Routine. And then he sinks. He cannot touch the ground. Okay? Now he's pushed his door open and he's getting out and he sinks. Cannot touch the ground. He is swimming, goes under, comes up. He can't touch the bottom. Why is it so deep? The car is sinking fast. He reaches out, tries to hold on to it, but it's gone. And a couple swear words. He dives down, nothing. Where is the bottom? It is night and the water is dark and cold. He takes another breath. I'm assuming that's because he went up. And then he dives as deep as he can, feeling around, nothing. Why is it so deep? He dives again. And well, how could this have happened? The kids, oh my gosh, the kids. He goes down again. Nothing. He comes to the surface and screams, help, somebody help. It is pitch black. He kicks his feet to stay afloat. Okay. And then the guy who wrote this book says this. This is the innocent version of the night Robert Farquharson killed his children. In a way, he'd already lost them. His wife, Cindy, had asked for a divorce 10 months prior, taking custody, the house, the good car. Cindy explained that she had loved him, but had never been in love with him. She had started a new relationship with a man who laid concrete what was supposed to be their new home. Robin moved in with his dad, who lived nearby, staying close to his children, now the focus of his life. And he hated living with his dad, and he still loves Cindy. But he hated the new man, who he called Dickhead. So anyway, he swims to the edge of the water and to get help. Now, he clambers up over a fence, and there's headlights. He waves them down. And then these two locals come out. Oh, this is where I wanted to get to. And they said, what are you doing? Trying to kill yourself? And he goes, no, I've just killed my kids. What have I done? What happened? And the men are staring at him, and he's thinking, what happened? Here's the road. There's the water. And then he says to them, I must have done a wheel bearing and put the car in the dam. Now, the wheel bearing, I guess, I don't know how you can do a wheel bearing. I would assume something goes wrong with the whatever he's talking about, because I'm not a mechanic, and something is thrown and the car goes off the road. I don't know how he would do that. The car would do that. It's kind of a strange statement, isn't it? But he says, I must have done that and put the car in the dam. Well, if that were true, he would have been awake for the whole thing. He would know exactly how the car got in the dam. He would have known the car went across the road. He would have known the car went down the grass. He would have known everything. He would be freaking out. Oh my God, Now, then he says, okay, I must have done a wheel bearing and put the car in the dam. I've killed the kids. I have to tell their mother. But still thinking, what the heck happened? And I'm paraphrasing here, so I don't get just tone up. You use the F word. But I'm on YouTube, right? He can remember coughing. One of the guys tells him to calm down. And again, he asks, what happened? And then he says, I blacked out. Robert, on the side of the road with two confused young men, remembered. He was coughing. He had been for days. He was coughing, and then they were in the dam. I was having a coughing fit. Next thing I remember, we were in the dam. I must have blacked out. All right. I tried to get the kids out. I need to tell their mother. I tried. I couldn't get them out. Cindy's waiting for us. I need to tell them. And these people are going, what is going on here? And then he says, I need a cigarette. Can you give me a smoke, mate? And you got to drive me to Cindy. I've got to tell their mother. I've got to tell her. What am I going to tell her? Oh, they're dead. Oh, my God. She's going to kill me. He's not making any sense. He's incoherent. He's babbling. And they don't know what to do with it. And then he says, mate, they say, mate, calm down. Take a breath. Tell us where the kids are. And he says, well, I blacked out and put the kids in the dam. The kids, they're in the car. I tried to get them out and I couldn't get them out. The kids, they're in there. And they're like, should we go down and try to get them out? But the guy's waiting for a cigarette. Should we call the police? And he keeps babbling. No, take me to their mother. It's too late. I got to tell Cindy, drive me to Winch. And then he's pointing down here. And they think he's like something wrong with him. Like he's autistic. He's got Down syndrome or something is just not right about the guy. And he says, which way? And he says, drive me there. I've got to tell Cindy I've killed the kids. I got to tell her. And he says, you sure we shouldn't call the cops? And it's too late. I got to tell her. So the guys are like so confused. They actually drive him to her house to tell them. And the kids are still in the water, and then later the police get contacted. And the boyfriend, where's boyfriend? He is with her at the house of Cindy. He's with Cindy. Is this him? Let's see if this is the guy. Yeah, that's her boyfriend. And this guy goes to the site, and he actually goes in the water and almost kills himself trying to get the kids out. But her husband, or estranged husband, is pretty much given up. So now, one of the problems you have with these cases is behavior. All right. Was the guy in shock? If the guy's in shock, and he's a bit of a weirdo anyway, did the shock make the weirdo say silly things, stupid things? Is he totally confused? Is he having known that he, for whatever reasons, he ended up in the water? Let's say he did have the coughing fit, blacks out, he ends up in the water, doesn't know what's going on, and then the kids are there, everything's crazy, it's dark, and then he gets out of the car and everything goes wrong. He thinks he's still in a ditch and there's going to only be little water, but there's, now he's in the water and he can't get back to the kids. And he already knows they're dead pretty much by the time he gets out. I mean, realistically, they were. So is he just losing his mind, completely losing his mind? And he knows it's done. He knows he's killed them, whether he did it, murdered them, or whether he just killed them by, having passing out or whatever. And he wants to go talk to his wife, because even though they're not together, and he's got horrible news, he knows he's got to be with her because she's the mother of his kids. It's hard to know if what he says is so bizarre because of who he is and the situation he's in, or because he's trying to make up a story that doesn't quite make sense. So there's all those things. Okay, now I'm hot. Hold on a second, folks. I got to get undressed. So, wow. It was so cold in here when I got here, and now I'm under the lights. Excuse me a second. Hopefully I have clothes on when I come out. Oh, look, still have clothes. Okay. Well, I would definitely have to edit the show really badly then. Oh my goodness. So that's the story that he gave when he first came out of this whole thing. So now I'm going to check on some of your comments on this whole thing about what do you think? Does anything make sense? Okay. Molly says, were there tire tracks? Yes. He must have turned kind of sharply to go off the road and into the pond. All right. So here was the problem with that. And this is part of the problem that the fellow who wrote the self-pub book pointed out. All right. So yes, they did a whole bunch of stuff. The prosecution, they let's see if I can find you the thing on the road here. Here's a picture. All right. This picture, those little yellow lines are where the police and the prosecution say he veered off the road. So he's in the left lane there, because we are in Australia, right? And so his car crosses the other lane and goes off the road. And what they're saying is that if he had gone unconscious, that let's see, how does this go? I'm trying to figure this whole thing out. If he had gone unconscious, it would not have veered so much. Okay. And because it veered so much. Oh, wait a minute. No, okay. Wait a minute. I'm trying to figure out how this works here. I'm in the wrong position here. Hold on. I got to find the other picture. I have trouble because of being an Australian case. Where's the other picture? Did I forget to put it up? No, I didn't forget. Did I? Okay. What's this picture? Oh, there we go. All right. Thank God. All right. This picture. All right. This look on the left, and it says, so this will help. The dashed line shows the path according to the computer simulations of the prosecution. So he's on his side of the road, which is on the left side since it's Australia. Now, the car then veers off. The car is assumed to sharply turn right, requiring a 220-degree turn of the steering wheel. So the theory then is after the sharp turn, then it goes down the slope. All right. Now, the claim would be that if he were driving and he blacked out, that the car would not have done this. The car would have done, it would just calmly go that way. But there were these tire tracks. So they went and saw all these tire tracks and stuff. So they came up with their conclusions about where the car, the little tracks were. And that's where this little yellow things are. But the red thing is where this guy claims, in his defense, that no, you see the straight line going out from one? He's saying no, he didn't have to make that disastrous turn. The car only had to veer across the road in a calm manner, but when it hit the hill, it would still slope down and leave the road. So either one of the two things can happen. Either he could have gone further up and then turned the vehicle where 2 is, or he could have collapsed at 1 and the car would have just gone straight ahead and then veered slowly and then went down the hill. Okay. What's true? Which is true? How do you know? And this is a big problem. Let me see if I can go up. I just want to show you some of the things he said in his book, which I thought were really cool. Okay, this is interesting. So what you have is the prosecution says he went like this. No, he went veered right. So he went like this to go into the pond on purpose. And that's because of the way the car took off of the road. This proves that it was not just, he didn't black out and the car just drifted. It proves he purposely turned the wheel. That's their proof of guilt. That's what they said. The other side says, wait a minute, maybe that's just not true. You're saying this is true, and how do we know? Now, here's something that does happen in the courtroom. The validation of an opinion by reference to a person's credentials is a well-known fallacious argument called an appeal to authority, and has no place in science. So when you get people on the stand, what they do is they bring in Dr. Somebody, and then they ask him what his credentials are. And he goes, well, I have a PhD in whatever. I'm a forensic scientist. I've worked for 20 years with the FBI, or whatever he's saying. And so let's say he's a prosecution witness. Prosecution puts him on there and he says all these great things, right? And then what you're trying to do is tell the jury that my guy's a witness. My guy's an expert. Anything he says, you should believe, especially if he's a doctor of forensic science of some sort. You know, how can you not believe him? He's studied this all his life. He knows what is true and what isn't true. He knows things scientifically. But then the defense gets up there and they try to trash the guy, you know, in every way they can possibly trash him. Then the defense gets their guy up there, and that guy goes, well, I'm Dr. So-and-so, and I'm telling you blah, 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 because I also have a PhD and I've worked with, and then the prosecution gets up there and tries to trash him. So you go through hours of each one trying to push their expert and hours of the other side trying to trash the experts. And here again is the jury going, I wonder which expert is smarter. You know, who's telling the truth? Well, again, prosecution and defense, two different things. So how are you supposed to know if you're lay people? How the heck are you actually supposed to understand the car issue? Where the car went off the road and how the car went off the road? How are you supposed to know? And honest to God, I don't. As much as I've read so far, I do not know. I might have to see demonstrations, cars at different, and I know some of this was done at the trial. Cars going different. They try to do different. They like have a car going at a certain miles per hour, kilometers per hour, and then they have it go at a higher rate and a lower rate to see if at certain rate it would veer more. But if you're looking at one circumstance too, it's entirely impossible to know the circumstance. For example, people drive, let's say you're driving 10 and 2. Now you pass out. Now, if you pass out, in theory, your hands go like this, maybe. All right. What happens if you're one of those people that likes to put their thing, like got the thing here and you put your arm in there, right? And so you're going like this. But then what happens is you pass out and this hand drops, but this hand also drops and pushes down on that piece of the whatever that is, what comes across the steering wheel in some cars. You go like that, then it would turn wouldn't that do it? So it would. Then I have a question about the gas pedal. Your foot's on the gas pedal. Exactly what happens to your foot on the gas pedal? When you pass out, does your foot go further down? Does it pull, does it pull back? Does it fall off? I mean, I honestly don't know. I'd have to go out there and start testing this. Does it matter what shoes you're wearing? Does it matter how you're sitting? What position you're in when you pass out? Where your legs are? Are your legs highly stretched out? Are they short? You can go on with 24 scenarios. And I don't know whether even then you're going to have an exact proof scientifically, like he's trying to point out, that this happened and that did not. Let's see what else he has to say. He said, for example, here, he's talking about how people are working for one side or the other. And that's another problem. FBI forensic lab worker said, people say we're tainted for the prosecution. Hell, that's what we do. We get our evidence and present it for the prosecution. Yes. And when the defense pays $50,000 for Dr. Somebody to show up, can you believe that he's not tainted by the fact he's being paid a lot of money? And that if he doesn't say what they want, he's not going to get the $50,000? And if you're working for the government, don't you kind of have to get the government happy? Hard to make sure the person's not being subjective. How we know that they're objective? Here's another one. All right. This is also interesting. Some of the differences in terminology used by experts seem to have are influenced by our adversarial system. And there's another issue, the adversarial system, where instead of working together to determine if the guy's guilty, we have sides. They're adversaries. So different language is used by different sides. Like somebody will say like frequently, and this other person will say sometimes. Depending on what side you are, you can change your vocabulary to influence the jury. Because you're not, again, looking at just the truth. You're trying to get the jury to come to your side. So you can use different words for people, their behaviors. There's so many things you can use words with to sway people. Let's see what else he says. Okay, I'm going to get into the coughing thing here. All right, so the first issue, as we say, is the issue of did the car go off the road because he was unconscious or not? Let me check on some of your comments before I go to the coughing issue. When he discourages the witnesses from going to the water for the kids, he didn't want them to be rescued. I think this is a very valid point. At the time he came out of the water, this I think is one of the most valid points that's not in his favor. When he came out of the water, he already couldn't get to the kids. There's a period of time that goes by, drowning happens quite quickly. So the chances of the kids being alive by the time he get out of the water was probably very limited. But as soon as he found people, you would think it would be a normal human response, because every parent wants to believe that for whatever reasons, you can still save that kid. Like if somebody better swimmer than you just happened to dive in and could find a kid and actually supposedly the boy Jay was actually coming out of the door and was found in the door. And if one diver went down there and found him and pulled him out, maybe even though he'd been in the water, because it was very cold water, maybe he could be revived. Every parent would want to believe it, even if it's not true. He apparently had no interest in having anybody go after the kids, including himself. He didn't want to go back in. He wasn't encouraging them to go back in. That is one of the things that makes this is a behavioral thing that makes him look rather guilty. So that is problematic. Okay, thank you. Oh, so you know what a bearing is? Okay, I don't even know what that is. A collapsed bearing wouldn't force you off the road across a paddock into a dam. Interesting. I actually don't know what that is, but what's interesting is more that he said it, because no matter what the problem with the car would have been, let's say you blew out a tire. That would be more something I could understand. Your tire blows and your car goes. You're not unconscious. You're going, oh crap. You are there completely aware, and your kids are probably screaming. So the last memories you would have would be the car skidding off the road, going down, almost hitting a tree and going into the water with screaming kids. That should be your last memory if you weren't unconscious. Why does he even bring up the wheel bearing issue? I find that fascinating because if he blacked out, he's driving along. He says he had a coughing fit and blacked out. If he's going, the last thing he's going to remember is he was driving along. Maybe he'd remember the coughing, but he would have no memory from that point on. So where does the wheel bearing thing even come there? And why was that the first thing he said? And why was the coughing fit the second thing he said? Like, oh, maybe this one's a better one. Let me go with the second one. What am I going to tell her? He was very insistent on getting to Cindy. Very insistent. He should have said that he was sneezing. In theory, there's a couple things that you could have come up with that wouldn't put you unconscious, but could cause you to lose control of the car. You could go with that. But he decided to go with the coughing thing. And I do want to discuss that in just a second. So the so-called father escaped from the car and left his 3 sons to drown, disgusting murder. Well, yes, he escaped from the car. And one of the weird issues about him escaping, in my opinion, is that he claims that his son opened the door on the passenger side and he reached over and closed it because water was coming in. But then he opens the door on his side and leaves. Okay. But here's what's more interesting to me. If the car had already been sinking in the water, a small child would not be able to open the door of the car. You can really only accomplish that in the first few seconds the water hits when the car hits the water. That is your top chance to open a door because the pressure on the side of the car is not so strong. Supposedly you can accomplish it again after the car completely sinks and the water fills all the way up to a certain level where it's like a here, and then you go, and then you open the door to the car because it's now the pressure is the same. Not too many people succeed in that. The other thing is the major recommendation is once you hit the water is get your window down, because getting your window down gives you, first of all, if you can get the window down quick enough, it'll give you enough of an escape area that you can get out of. And also, theoretically, it's easier for other kids to get out of the window too. You could drag them through the window, maybe push them, whatever. They might be able to swim through the window. Easier than the door like this. And yet, interestingly enough, his son does end up in the open door. And when they're pulling the car back out, they actually have to push the kid back in order to pull the car back up. And so, if his son was in the next seat next to him and didn't have the seatbelt on, and he's opening the door, you would think he would try to grab for his son and pull his son up. But he never says he did that. He just says he left the car, and that was that. And then after he goes up and gets air, comes back down and can't. His son is supposedly halfway out the car, partway out the car door, and he doesn't go down there and seem to get him. So his story under the water is a little odd to me. What's odd is that he was able to get his own door open, and I wonder that he didn't do that when he hit the water. He didn't open that door and get out immediately, which would then mean he did not have coughing syncope. He did not. That would mean he was perfectly awake when that went into the water, and he made sure he got out. Now, why the key that was turned off and the lights were turned off is weird as heck. So when did that happen? The defense guy claims that he was, after he went under the water and he woke up, he's thinking, well, I must be in a ditch. So he turns the engine off, why would you turn the lights off? It says it's habit. He had a habit of doing that. So that's what he did. And then he tried to open his door. Yeah. I find that story a little hard to believe, but I believe it's more likely that, if he was in control, that as he was going down the hill, he turned the lights off and turned the engine off and hit the water and then opened the door and got out. But that's just a scenario. That's if he were awake. Because if he were awake, then he either lost control of the car and is blaming it on being unconscious, and therefore he didn't try to murder the kids. He just lost control of the car and doesn't want to admit it. But it wasn't a very good place to lose control of the car. There was no reason to lose control of the car there. So, and that whole thing about where the car, he did have car trouble, made it sound like he was trying to say he lost control of the car in the beginning. But then it seems like he went, oh, that's not a good enough excuse. So let me say I blacked out. But if he didn't black out and his excuse, he didn't have any car troubles, then he did put the car in the water. And then that would be homicide. That would be murder. Whether was it going to be a suicide murder and suicide, whether he was planning to kill himself and then just panicked when he hit the water, or whether he had planned it. I would say that probably if he managed to get the car door open quickly, then he planned it. Now, the little boy, the claim that the boy opened the door and he closed it, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he really sank before that all this happened, whether the boy opened the door and he pulled it. I don't see how the boy could open the door. I just don't believe the boy could open the door. I think it's impossible with the pressure. So I don't buy it. So it seems like his door is the only one that opened. So did he wait till he sank and then get out? Or did he already have it open and jump out as the car was going down? And if that's true, this was planned, and also probably wasn't suicidal either. So that's my thoughts on that. I'll check a few more comments, and then I will go to the syncope thing, because that is interesting. Let's see. Not at the time. No. Cigarette. Oh, cigarettes. Well, he apparently smoked. He had coughing problems. He supposedly was also sick, but he was smoking cigarettes. Well, people, and then if people do smoke cigarettes a lot and they're freaking out, I get it. They want to smoke a cigarette because it calms them down. But I like that. Give me a cigarette. No, jump in and stay there until you get your kids out. They were like, the two guys were just like, what's this guy going? They didn't know what the heck was going on with this guy. I think this is sarcastic. Whenever I have a coughing fit, I always black out. Okay. On that note, Michaela, let's talk about syncope, because tell you the truth, that was my reaction. I'm like, seriously, you cough and you pat. Like, how many times in our life have we coughed our heads off, especially with COVID? How many people coughed during COVID and collapsed on the floor? All right. So let's talk about syncope. All right. So that basically, what is syncope? I do have a little, where's my little thing here? Okay. I have this on syncope. What is it? Because it's important to understand what it is. All right. Basically, syncope is also a thing called vasovagal syncope. Okay. Vasovagal syncope. All right. How does it happen? Look at the 8 things. Stress, blood. You know how many people see blood and they pass out? That's what's happening. Pain, strong feelings, situational, urination. Some people actually have problems in urinating. They can actually pass out. Vomiting, they vomit so much they pass out, and coughing. All right, coughing is there. It is. So here's the thing. Vasovagal syncope. All right. I have had one experience with this in my life. So I want to share this with you because I want to show how it happens. That wasn't for coughing. It was, I believe, pain. Now, here's what happened. I woke up with a horrific cramp in my leg. Like the cramp woke me up. It's one of those where you go, oh my God, it was so bad. It was so bad. Like I barely could get out of bed, and I got out of bed and I could hardly walk. And so I'm in terrible pain. And I'm like trying to stomp on stomp on your leg to get rid of that. And then it occurred to me as I was stomping on my leg to try to get rid of the cramp and the pain, that I needed fluid. And I'll try these other things I always say to, eat some mustard or something to try to get rid of that. And so anyway, I went downstairs, which was really stupid, actually, when I think about it, because I had to go downstairs, and thank God nothing happened on the stairs. Now I live on a flat floor. So if I get that same thing, I just collapse on the carpet. But anyway, I went down the stairs, got there. I got into, it was a laundry room because I had two refrigerators, one in the kitchen and one in the laundry room. The laundry room had some extra stuff in it. And I had a bottle of sparkling water. So I thought, I'll get the sparkling water. So I got to the refrigerator, I opened it up, I took out the sparkling water. I started walking out of the laundry room into the dining room. I had unscrewed the top. And as soon as I unscrewed the top, I said, oh, that's it. I've never fainted in my life. I didn't know what it was like to faint. But at that moment, I knew I was blacking out. I just knew it in a second. And the next thing happened, I woke up on the floor. My nightgown was over my head with nothing under it. So that was a good thing nobody was there, actually. I'm laying there. The water from the bottle, was cold water, was pooling around my head. I don't know if that's what woke me up. So it was pooling under my head. And so I woke up and I'm like, what was that? And I didn't know what it was at that point. I thought I'd had a stroke because I was in my 50s. I'm like, did I have a stroke? And then I went, my face seems to be working. How about the arms? I'm on the floor doing things, see if I'm functioning. Can I talk? And then I noticed I had a really big bump on my head, a really bad bump on my head. And I had hit the sideboard going down. Of course, I didn't know. It's great when you're unconscious, you don't feel anything. So I had hit the sideboard, so I had this huge bump. And I was like, what the heck was that? Because I never fainted in my life. And I've worked in hospitals. I've seen some really bad, I've seen surgeries and stuff and people's fingers hanging off, stuff that's really creepy. And I have never fainted. And I'm like, what the heck happened? And I started researching and I found out it was what they call vasovagal syncope, that the pain was so strong and the blood was also rushed down to the cramped area. And I passed out. It happened that quickly. So can it happen? Yes, it can. Now, and it does apparently can happen with coughing. Yet, yes, I've never heard of coughing knocking you out, but here we have people saying it does happen. So the next problem comes down to is how often does it happen? And how often is it reported to somebody as opposed to people witnessing it? All right. So if you have a condition or claim you have a condition, people claim things. Oh, yeah, I passed out. Did you? Or did you just feel bad and sit down in a chair? I threw up a lot last night and I passed out from throwing up. Or would you just pass out because you were drunk off your butt? I mean, are you accurately describing what happened, or are you making up what happened? So the next question is witnesses. Do you have witnesses? So I'm going to tell you in the second story, and then I'm going to go through his history and the history of coughing syncope. So my other story is this. So I was in Costa Rica with my sister. Probably in my 40s. Maybe my 40s. Maybe somewhere around there. Anyway, or maybe 50. But we're walking through this monkey area in the jungle. And I have a thing of water with me. And I take a sip of the water. And all of a sudden, my throat closed. Okay, now this thing is called... my airway closed off. What was it? See that thing on the right? That's what it looks like. And it's called laryngospasm, where your throat closes. And it is as frightening as it can possibly get. You feel like, well, you're choking, but there's nothing you're choking on, you see. So my sister knew I wasn't choking on anything because I just had water in my hand. And we weren't eating anything as we were walking. And she's staring at me going, oh my God, what do I do? And I didn't know, because it never happened to me before. I didn't know what to tell her. I was going for a really long time, like you think you're going to die. And it takes a really long time for that thing to release. And finally it does. And then I could breathe again. And she goes, what was that? And I said, I don't know. I've never experienced anything like that. And then a year went by, 2 years went by, 3 years went by. I can't remember how many years went by. And I was woken up one night. Same thing happened, waking up in my bed. And it was horrifying and getting scary as all get out. And they say that with laryngospasm that there's a couple things you can do, by the way, in case you ever have it. You want to push actually the spot behind your ears and lean your head like this. and it helps open up the airways sooner. All right. And that happened when I was alone. It was terrifying. But here's the thing. I had a witness to the first time. Then it happened when I was sitting around with my daughters. She gave me some sour gummies. I think the sour gummies trigger. I think I have some trigger thing that triggers something, whatever. And I ate the sour gummy anyway, and it did the same thing. Now she thought I was choking on the sour gummy, so she was going to come over and Heimlich me, and I had to stop her and tell her don't. But she's watching me. I'm going, but I'm telling you not to bother me. And then I could breathe again eventually. And then it happened to my sister's other sister, not the same sister. And I was having dinner with her and her husband, and it happened again. And same thing. She jumped up to do a Heimlich. I'm like, don't do it. Well, now, luckily, I haven't had it in quite a while. Last time I had it, though, I was driving, drinking coffee. And luckily, I was driving on a slow road, but I think I was driving the same amount of, I don't think I was driving any faster than good old Robert there. So, so we were driving about the same speed, but I did keep my car on the road, even though I couldn't pull it over. There's just no place to pull it over at that point. And I knew what this was. So I had to concentrate on driving and choking at the same time until it released. And I was trying to do this, but it was horrible. But that has not happened in, I think, the last year or two. I think I've had like maybe 10 episodes of that crap. Don't know what actually causes it, and I don't know why I haven't had it in a year or two, but I don't want it. I prefer not to have it. It's frightening. They say that if you pass out, supposedly it'll release and you'll breathe. So that's the good news. Now, so having told those stories, what two things are important? One thing, does it exist? And the answer is yes, it does exist. Two, do you have any witnesses to it existing? Now, for my first one, that I was talking about. No, I had no witness to that. I just had a severe pain thing and a cramp and passed out. Now, nobody knows whether I'm telling the truth, but I had that experience. Also, because I do have 3 witnesses to the choking thingy, people do know it has happened to me. Now, I want to point out one more important thing to keep in mind as we go through some of the statistics here. Keep this in mind too. Just because you have a condition and you even have witnesses to that condition, doesn't mean that is what happened when you were driving. And this is one thing the defense leaves out completely. And this guy in the book never mentions this possibility. If you're trying to come up with a reason for something, you can always go back in your own history and come up with that reason. I mean, I could easily say that, the reason I drove off the road was because I had this thing, my throat closed up. And somebody will say, well, I've seen Pat. Yeah, Pat has that problem. Does it mean my throat closed up when I drove off the road? It doesn't mean it's true. It just means that I'm saying that because I've experienced that, and it seems like a good reason for me to come up with. I never saw that mentioned in either book that I read. I did not see anybody mention that he could have the condition but be lying about it happening exactly at that moment. So then let me just tell you a couple of things here about some of the statistics on it, just because I think it's interesting. Let me find it. All right. He found the UK Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency said that 25 road fatalities per year happen due to cough syncope. Now, he's supposed to be scientific. Okay, they're attributing it, 25 of them. Well, here's the question. How do they know? How do they know? In other words, it's fatalities. So if the guy's alone in the car, how do they know he coughed and blacked out? Because he's dead. That's why he has no witnesses. His kids are dead. But kids can't say, well, Daddy coughed because they're dead. Or Daddy didn't cough because they're dead. So in order to have 25 of these coughing fatalities, there is absolutely no scientific way to prove it. Like if I say my throat closed up and that's why I crashed my vehicle, you could take me to the doctor and they're not going to look at my neck and they're not going to be able to say that happened. All right. When I passed out because of my cramp in my leg, they're not going to be able to take me in and show anything happened to me. My blood pressure would be normal. Everything's perfectly fine. They can't prove it. They couldn't prove he had coughing syncope. They could not prove it after the fact. He went to the doctor and they couldn't prove anything. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just doesn't mean it did. So how did they prove that there are 25 fatalities? They would have to have 25 people in the car with the driver who said, I saw the driver go, and then the car crashed, but luckily I didn't die. That's the only way. So I question that little statistic. All right, then let's see. Okay, here we go. There are two options. Either, why can't I pronounce the guy's name? Farquharson had cough syncope, or Farquharson committed filicide. Both are rare, but one of them must be correct. Now that is accurate. He either had a coughing fit and blacked out, and therefore he was truly not responsible for the kids. Well, I'll take that back. If he's had problems with that cough syncope before, which has caused him to pass out, as he claims, why is he driving a car with his kids in it? That would be my question. Okay, but if it did happen, then it would come under accidental. But if he didn't have the attack, he's a lying dog, and he purposely drove into the drink. So that's true, one or the other. Now, let's look at some of these purported histories. He says, I collated his purported histories, and he's going, all right, let's say he says, I'm imagining he's presenting to a doctor. On the 30th of August 2005, the patient, that would be him, reports a blackout after coughing in a car park. So that's what he claims. Again, it's interesting. Supposedly the car rolled, all right, and rolled into a wall or something. Well, dude, if you're coughing in your car and your car rolls into a wall, perhaps you shouldn't be driving. Okay. But this was not witnessed. But the story was relayed to a friend on September 1st, 2005. So suppose he told somebody, I coughed and passed out. Then on the second, this is a day later, he suffers a severe coughing fit that led to dizziness, a pre-syncope episode. So in other words, his coughing fit made him dizzy because he didn't get enough air. Witnessed by his boss, who helped him sit down. Okay, the boss witnessed him going, oh, that is not the same thing as blacking out. All right. Then let's see. Then on the 4th of September, this is all happening right in a row. The patient this is the accident. The patient blacks out after coughing, resulting in his car running off the road. Not witnessed. This episode is an unverified claim of the patient. This will be the death of the 3 children. Then supposedly in 2009, this is in the prison. Patient blacks out after coughing, falls from a chair to the floor, and breaks his leg. Witnessed by multiple people say the patient remained unconscious for several seconds despite the broken leg. All right. That's the most interesting one. Now, he had a lot of bad health and all kinds of other issues. Did that happen? Yes, maybe. But again, maybe his wife says he's had coughing problems, and she said she never, in all the time she was with him, saw him pass out. And that was good. And this was during the first trial. She believed, see how sad she looks with him? She believed he was innocent. She could not believe he purposely killed her kids. She's okay, he's got issues with me, but he would never kill the kids. Well, she's changed her mind, by the way. But she believed he didn't do it. She believed he actually blacked out. And but she said she had never seen him black out prior. So that's interesting. His wife was with him for all those years, never saw him suffer one of these attacks. Yet he did tell somebody at work that he had blacked out in a parking lot and this car rolled. He did tell somebody that. So could it have happened? Could he have this problem? The answer is yes. The next question is, did it really happen on the day he says it happened? And that's where I say we will never know, because even if he has the condition, it doesn't mean he had the condition that day. But it may sound like, well, I might as well say that I blacked out. That sounds a lot better than I drove the car off the road. So let's see what else he has to say here. Then his wife, his sister also says he coughed and fell to the floor, but that's his sister, so I'm not going to believe that one. Let's see. Okay. This is the one where he supposedly rolled into a wall. Anything else here? This is it. On the other hand, Cindy Gambino testified that Farquharson often had bad coughs, but in more than 10 years of living together, she had never seen him cough and then fall unconscious. Isn't it a coincidence that Farquharson's first episode of cough syncope happened only shortly before Father's Day 2005? Right? You wonder about that, again, did it really happen? Then he thought when this other thing happened, it's like, did it happen twice just because he was having problems with it? And then he had another problem with it and it just came close together? Because I know that with the throat thingy, I had a period of time when they came close together because I don't know, something was obviously bugging my throat. I was having some kind of weird reaction. And so it happened more than once and in a short period of time than the one way before and the one couple way after. But there was a whole period of time when I was actually paranoid like every day. I was afraid to go to sleep. So could he have started to have this problem the first time? Oh my God, I blacked out. And then maybe he thought it was just a freak thing and it would never happen again. And then he's driving his kids home and it happens again. Could it have happened? Yes. But could he also just be lying? Yes. See, now you're in a situation in the courtroom. How do you know? So far what we've got is we don't quite know whether about the car going off the road. There seems to be two good stories on that. And unless I spend a lot of time and go through a whole bunch of stuff, I don't know whether I can figure it out. Now, if I were on a professional jury, I'd hope they would give me time to, I think if a professional jury, I don't want things presented either. I want them to say, you can go home and study this crap. I want this stuff in writing because I don't, the other thing was you're in a court, they talk and they won't let you write. I don't retain things that I cannot see. I'm a visual person, not an auditory person. So I want to see it. I want notes. I want to take my notes. I want you to just hand me a transcript of the damn trial and I want to go home and study it. If I can't do that, I can't possibly give a good verdict because I don't have time to figure it out. So those are two things now. We've got the car issue going off the road. We have the issue of what his claims were when he was in the car, which I think are sketchy. We have his weird behavior afterwards, which I think is sketchy. And we have his claim of the cough, which I think isn't a bad claim and could have happened, but I'm bothered by the wheel bearing thing. Is that what it's called again? Is that the name of it? I keep forgetting what's called. Where's that? Okay, where's that claim? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where's that story? Okay, where'd it go? I can't find it now. Is it here? Nope. Sorry, I'm flicking around here. Okay. What is this one? Oh, yeah. He told this to the paramedics, too. He told the paramedics his oldest son had opened up the door, causing the car to fill up with water and sink, that he himself had got out, flagged down a vehicle, and gone to Winch to tell the police and his ex-wife what had happened. That's the basics from her book. Okay. So anyway, so that's where we are. So now I'll look at your comments, and then I'm going to go to the other issue. Because now we have witnesses in the court to talk about him and what kind of character he is. And did he have the, was he the kind of guy to possibly do this kind of thing? And that's the real question. Let me check the comments and I'll go to that. Because now it becomes an issue of behavioral profiling. What? I just got kicked out of here. Oh, how'd you get kicked out? Okay, let me see. I don't know. Tell me what the heck. Okay, let me go down to the bottom here. All right. Let's see. Oh, I blacked out for a minute. Let's see. Okay, Lisa S. says this, in no way scientific, but what about a parent who it is said would move heaven and earth to save his children no matter what consequences? Well, you and I might do that, but the question is, what about other people? Are other people, do they freeze? Do they not function? Do they give up easily? He was a wuss. Okay, that's the one thing he was. And in many ways, he was a wuss. People said that, his wife was pretty much the strong one. I tend to believe that. She knew what she wanted, and she was often frustrated with him because he was quite a failure. He was a failure in life. He was a failure in business. He was a failure in a lot of things he did. He wasn't good with the kids. in general. I mean, it just was so he wasn't doing that well. And so who knows whether he's just such a mess that he just doesn't respond very well. Yeah, that we called the Charlie horse. I had a Charlie horse in my cap. That is correct. Yeah. Let's see. Was it planned for his son to spend Father's Day with his wife or her new boyfriend? The Father's Day was going to be at the other house. And then the kids, she ended up dumping the kids with him for some reason. I can't remember. Now, interesting enough, let's talk about Greg King. Greg King was a buddy of his. And apparently he had run into Robert outside this place called I don't know, that's a little place to eat. Anyway, I don't know if that's the place. Anyway, he had run into him and Robert was in a foul mood and was saying how his wife had taken everything from him. She was off with a new man and she had this new guy in her life and they were going to get the new house that they were going to build and they were going to go live there. And he had to go live with his dad. And he even got the crappy car and she got the new car. So he was really pissed. And he said some pretty scary things to the point where he was saying he'd get back at her and he'd get back at her by killing the kids on Father's Day. All right. So at any rate, he testifies in court. It's a real long conversation that he had with him saying, what are you talking about? You can't come here. That's crazy stuff. He was saying, he was like, and the people would say to him, well, if he really said these things, the defense said this, if he really said all these things that he was thinking of killing the kids just to get back at her and she, the old thing, I can't have them, she can't have them, she can't have everything type of thing. Why didn't he report that immediately to her? Hey, your ex is saying really weird shit. You might want to take real precautions. Maybe go to the police even say the guy's threatening the children. But he claims that being a dude, maybe he just was like, maybe he's just saying stupid stuff just because he's, people get mad and they say dumb stuff like, if my husband were out there, I'd run him over with a car. Doesn't mean you're going to go run him over with a car. However, when you start talking about killing your children, I find that more of a red flag because that's so abhorrent to even think of hurting your children. For spouses, people tend to think of hurting them all the time, and might say just stuff making, such stuff, but children, that's not usually a joke. You know what I mean? I'll kill my kid. I'll toss the baby in the washer. You don't say stuff like that. So he was appalled and it was freaking him out. And he was talking to him. I guess the guy left, he just thought, the guy's just talking crazy crap, but didn't think to report it. And that the defense held against him. Now, the defense then started saying that it had been a long time since he'd said that in the trial. And the question is, they were buddies. So theoretically, now, mind you, at the first trial, she still believed that her husband was innocent. So why doesn't the friend think the husband's innocent? He goes to the trial in spite of her thinking, no, he didn't kill those kids on purpose. He's there saying that's what he said he'd do. And he said he'd do it on Father's Day. But of course, the kids weren't even supposed to be there on Father's Day. So did he add that in? Did he make that up? And then they started questioning if he made up everything. In other words, did he just talk to him in frustration? Now he's exaggerating. His memory is not remembering it correctly. So that became a bit of an issue, as far as, do you believe Greg King? Because if he's actually ideating murder, that is a huge sign before somebody does something. And so I think it had his testimony did have a lot to do with the jury finding him guilty. Now that was the first time through. All right. Now the second round, he came back, but by that time, they now trying to trash him for, having his personal issues. And then they had this new witness that came in, and the new witness basically said that she had actually been on the road behind the father. And he was like slowing up and changing speeds, and he was slowing down, and seemed like he was looking for something. She went around him. And as she went around him, she sort of glanced in the car and she saw him driving, looking over. And then she thought she saw his car veer off the road. Now, she thought, well, I guess he found what he's looking for. But later on, she saw this thing was in the pond, and she never reported it, that she had seen him. Now, the question is, why not? Is it because she didn't want to get involved, which people don't? She didn't want to end up in court. God knows, being a witness in court, you might just want to shut the heck up. She didn't feel comfortable talking to the police about it, or she figured, what's the point? What testimony do I need to even give here? But by the second trial, she came forward and gave her story. And of course, the defense tried to beat the story down, saying, how much of this is imagined again, because, now she's seen the kids on TV. Now she imagines seeing the kids in the car. She imagines this, she imagines that. Or she's conflating reality with, misremembering stuff. Or she's just making up stuff. Can she even prove she saw him? Maybe she just made up the whole story because she wants to now be famous. Maybe she never was behind him. But he got convicted a second time. So, is he guilty? And I want to point out one thing, that I think this, to me, leans me. Now, mind you, it leans me. If I'm in a court of law, I'd have to listen to everything here, and I don't know what I would have done, because, again, it's so hard to prove he didn't have the coughing syncope. Hard to prove it. In spite of everything else, it's hard to say that's not true unless you can prove the car was purposely pulled off the road and you couldn't do it by passing out with your arm in the thing, that kind of stuff that I spoke about. Now, here's the thing I thought was interesting. This is what the wife said about Robert. He was very down and out type of guy. Woe is me. Very glass half empty. He hated living at his father's. He wanted their unfinished house to be sold so he could buy himself a place to live and a new car. He would never get ahead while he had to keep paying maintenance. He said he was looking at starting some sort of business in Queensland. Gambino told him he could not do that. He could not leave his kids. Now, to me, that's motive. More so than I hate your guts, I'm going to take your kids away. He, to me, has borderline personality disorder. If I were going to analyze him as a psychologist, which, of course, I'm not a psychologist, so I can't analyze him as having borderline personality disorder. But that's what it looks like to me. Borderline personality disorder is one of these people that no matter what you do, you can't make happy. There's always the glass half empty. It's the pit. You can keep throwing things into the pit and it'll never fill up. Something is always wrong. Something's never good enough. And they're hard people to live with, and they're hard people to ever please. And you could try, but it just never quite takes. Some people with borderline personality disorder can become very successful people, but other ones have trouble functioning in life because the glass is always half empty. And they're jealous of other people, and they're angry. They think other people get what they don't. So now he's at the situation in life where he would like to go away, start his life over again, free of all the burdens. And his wife has told him, well, you can't do that because you got to be here for the children. And you got to contribute to their welfare. There's three of them. More than one man has gotten rid of his kids because he's tired of paying the money and he needs it for himself. And two, they're in his way. Okay, I love the kids, but they're keeping me from having a life. And if I leave them with you and run away, well, then I'm still supposed to pay for them. So I'd have to hide someplace. But maybe if I just drive off this road here into the water and I get out and the kids just happen to drown, we'll all be sad. And then I can just go off and do what I want to do. We'll all just remember them in our hearts. And some people who have this kind of personality disorder can do this. It's a high level of narcissism there, as you can see, but it's like them or me. Well, I guess me, and, I've always been good to them. And I guess, it'll only be a few seconds and they'll be, it'll be over for them. And, so be it. People die every day. So why not my three kids? So do I think he's got the motive? Yes, I do. I think it was a very bad place. He was angry with his wife. He's angry with his wife getting together with the new dude. He was angry with having to pay things. His life was falling apart. He couldn't get, I think everything I have no problem with the motive. Do I think Greg King might have been telling the truth? I certainly think Greg King remembered, because in the first trial, he had no reason to lie. So did he say those exact words? I don't know. But I think Greg King certainly knew he was, right before this point, was highly agitated. The syncope thing, what are the chances, even if he's had it before, what are the chances he had it at that exact moment so his car could go off the road into the water? What else do we have here? His behaviors during the car going in don't quite click right to me. Do not seem to match what was happening. And his behaviors afterwards, in spite of what everybody says, well, not everybody, the defense says that he's just a weirdo and doesn't handle things right. It's still bizarre. It's almost like he wanted to go tell his wife, see, it's over. The kids are gone. I'm free. He kind of wanted to get that off his chest, and didn't really want to save the kids very badly. So that's my whole look at it. Now, if I were in the court of law, would I have found him guilty? I don't know if I could find him guilty based on what I just said. Do I have reasonable doubt? Without the proof that the car left the road by his own hand, I don't know that I would have found him guilty. I would have been. I think I would have thought he did it, but I don't know whether I would have, because the issue of the car issue is problematic for me, just because that's a solid proof. Because other than that, he could literally have blacked out, and I can't. Even if he's got anger issues, even if he's pissed off, and all these kind of things, there are people who say he didn't look like he was about to kill the kids. He had had them for the day, taken them out for food. He picked up some item to take back to their mom. He was taking them home, and people say it didn't fit in that spot. So just because he's got issues, unless you know he's telling the truth that he said I'm going to kill the kids on Father's Day, unless that's absolutely true, and I can't prove that it is. And then, of course, the woman who passed by him said he was upright and then took the move so that he wouldn't have been blacking out because she didn't see him coughing. And the defense will say, well, maybe she just really didn't look that hard. You know, you're driving by, especially when you're accelerating to get around somebody. I know when we're annoyed with somebody as you're driving by, you always want to look over and see what that asshole looks like. There's some weird thing, like they're going to look some strange way. It's like, yeah, you look like an asshole, but are you really, how long are you looking at them? So would she have seen everything? Could he have coughed? And then when she came by, he was like in the middle of it. I don't know, because that's not really convincing evidence for me. So, yeah. So what are your thoughts? I'll be curious. All right, let's see. All right. Oh my goodness. Was there a custody battle? I don't think there was so much a custody battle. He had visitation. I think she had more, he didn't have a place for the kids to live at that point or anything else. So no, I don't think there was a custody battle. He was like taking him on every other weekend or something. I think he was perfectly happy not to deal with him, but he would owe money. He was upset about everything. I mean, she was kind of done with him, and he was still supposedly in love with her or didn't want to give her up. And she's got the new man whom they're living together, the new man and her, and he's dumped. He was dumped. I mean, I'm sure he was, separation is a brutal thing for a lot of people. And even when things are, it's just, I mean, I've been through it, it wasn't easy. And I think that I had some I was pretty upset, and and I was I'm not going to get my history on that, but I was pissed. Let's put it that way. I was pissed. I didn't kill him. I was pissed. He doesn't possess that kind of love, and you might be correct. People who have like borderline personality disorder, if he has it, because again, I'm not a psychologist, and I am not diagnosing, as Dr. Grundy would say, even though he has more right to diagnose than me, as far as that goes, because he's a therapist at least. Their love is a little bit different. It's more of a love for themselves, a neediness. It's a neediness. It's the person is useful to them. It's kind of somewhat similar to psychopathy in that you can love somebody like you would love a car. Man, my car, I just think my car is great. doesn't mean you have, the car has feelings and you care about the car's feelings. You just love that car because it's an awesome car. And then when the car starts becoming annoying, you might dump it and get a new car. So yeah, might not quite like that. It was a death sentence when they hit the water. Well, pretty much. I think the little boy had a chance to get out, but only if Dad had pulled him out right behind him. But he didn't. Let's say. Oh yeah, definitely. He was because the guy his wife hooked up with seems like a really great guy. I mean, he seemed like he loved the kids. He was good to the kids. I mean, he was the one that almost drowned himself trying to save the kids, even though they were already in the drink for a long time. And he apparently a great guy, and he seemed like a real good guy. Yeah, sure, he was probably very jealous of him, and a good-looking fellow too. Yeah, I don't remember him stalking her, but maybe. There's sad sack would be. That's kind of the way he always came across, as kind of a sad sack. And the other thing too about how much time, people talk about suicide in the same way. How much time do you need to plan suicide? Sometimes people go to like a family event and they're like, hey, it's everything great. I can't wait to start college tomorrow. And then they go home and kill themselves. And you go, what the heck? They look perfectly fine. They did, but obviously not. And so sometimes suicide can happen it's not like they haven't had the ideation, because ideation always comes before action. The fact that he had the ideation, if Greg King is telling the truth, of killing the kids, even if he was joking, it's still an ideation. So you have to have an ideation before the action. You just don't do something you never thought about. So, but the thought can come quite quickly before the actual thing. So it is possible he was driving home, and as he was driving, not home, he's driving to his wife's with the kids in the car. And who knows, one of the kids could say, well, we can't wait to see our new stepdaddy, and he's like, yeah, well, you're not going to, could be like that. It could be, oh, now I got to drop him off again. I got to see that creep, she's just going to talk to me. And then, or, suddenly he's just driving along. He's like, I got nothing to live for. So it could be that one of these three things went in his head, and he made that decision fairly instantly, but the thought was there. And again, he could have been committing suicide, doing a whole family annihilation, but taking himself out with him. But when you hit the water, drowning and your car sinking is a little different than taking, you put a gun to your head is quick. But when you're sinking and you're choking, trying to get air, it's scary. So a lot of people will freak out. Now, if you want to actually kill yourself by that, you jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, and then you probably don't have to worry about what happens under the water, because you'll be completely unconscious. Yes, he's a former friend. Yes, they grew up together and stuff. I don't have all the details on Greg King. I read all about him, but it's been a few hours. Yeah, he grew up with him and was friends with him. So he wasn't the person you would think had anything against him. That's why I say it wasn't like he had a grudge against him, so he just wanted to take him down. And if she had thought her husband was guilty the first time around, and he was friends with her, I can see where he'd come in and back her up by saying, oh yeah, and he's said all these things. But she thought he was innocent, and he was going against that. And she was not happy about what he was saying in the first trial, because she just thought, well, how can you say that about him? Because she could not believe and did not want to believe that he did this on purpose. Losing your child to an accident, your 3 children to an accident that you cannot, he blacked out. There's nothing you could do. You can live with that. But then to think that he actually did it on purpose and killed your children, here's a picture of her when she's thinking about that. She's having a hell of a time dealing with that. And now she believes he's guilty, and is not doing well with that thought in her life. If it was an accident, he deserves 33 years for being a shit parent. If it's murder, he deserves 33 years for being evil. I mean, I don't know that he was a totally shit parent. We're getting her side of the story on that too. So, not so sure. Other family members. Yeah, I don't have all of that. I say that wasn't in every one of wasn't in all the books. His family seems to really like him. They all stand by him. They still stand by him. I don't know anything about any ex-girlfriends. I didn't see anything on that. If I were writing a book, I'd put that in there. Not writing a book. Let's see. She usually comes around, but not always. I need an hour of analysis. Hey, maybe I got to go to the end of this. You got my analysis. I'll see what you say at the end now. Let's see. What made his wife change her mind about his guilt? I watched some things on that. I didn't see a very clear thing about that. Again, I may have just missed the part where it was in. She supposedly did another show, and I didn't get to see that show. She may have explained it more thoroughly then. Maybe just, what he said and thinking about it, and then the new witness that came forward. Maybe just, maybe she got past the point where she could realize that he could do that. You re-examine things. She was pretty nasty about him the second time around. She had a lot of very negative things to say about him. And the question is, did she bury those negative things to begin with because she didn't want to believe it? Or is she making up negative things later because she wants to believe it? I don't know. And I don't know, you have a lot of questions here, and all I can say to you is, this is a YouTube show. I'm not an expert on this case. Sometimes people ask me so many questions, and so there's no way I'm going to know these things. I didn't write a book on it. If I write a book on this case, then I will spend hours and hours and hours, hundreds and hundreds of hours going through every piece of information and putting everything together. But that's why I don't write true crime books, because that's torture for me. So I don't know. There's always tons more information out there. And so, if you're very interested in it, I suggest you look further. This is an analysis based on what I can access in a reasonable period of time, and to show you again how I would think through criminal profiling, how I would think through crime scene analysis, and how I would look at the evidence which has been presented and say, what would I do with it? And so, I'm sure there's massive amounts more information out there if one wants to delve into all of that. So, like, too much work. Let me check more things. That is a very good point, Sylvain. He couldn't stand his wife finding happiness elsewhere, and the kids loved the stepdad. That's why he did it, in my opinion. And I do think that's perfectly reasonable to think that played into it. Again, he's basically lost everything. And now, a lot of it's due to his own stupidity and his own issues, okay? Then, of course, in a marriage, there's always two sides to everything. I don't know what kind of person she is to live with. Sometimes we point fingers one way or the other, and we honestly do not know. And that's why we're so surprised sometimes when somebody, that's a divorce happens. People go, oh, my God, I can't believe it. You all were so happy. And then each side has something to say. Oh, well, this is her fault. No, it's his fault, And it's also personalities, and do they work together well? Do they clash? And he supposedly had, he did have a lot of issues with depression. He had gone and gotten Zoloft and a bunch of other stuff from doctors. So, not him. Sorry, wrong guy behind me. Not you, Greg. Well, you might have problems too, Greg, but you're not being accused of homicide. So, yeah, him, him. So he had been going to doctors for depression, and so he had those issues. He was not a happy camper. He was not a happy man. There's no question about that. The question is, was he an unhappy man who had a coughing syncope? Or was he an unhappy man who drove his kids into a dam? It's that simple, but it is a little tricky to prove. Now, I don't know, not being in the court, and I'm looking at this scientific guy's book, and he's explaining much more about the tire tracks and the veering of the car and oh my God. And I mean, I kind of got lost there. Now, If you're a criminal profiler, it doesn't mean you can understand every kind of piece of evidence out there. For example, let's say it's something about a trajectory of bullets. Well, I understand a reasonable amount about trajectory, and if I have a case that I'm analyzing, we'll go back to my books on ballistics and so on and so forth, and I will go and look at things like that. But I will also say this, that I might have to contact an expert about things that I do not know, because I am not an expert in ballistics. That's not what I do as a criminal profiler. I understand some things about ballistics, and then I will research to understand more to be able to. But again, I started looking at the car information. I haven't got a clue. First of all, I'm not standing on the road. I haven't seen videos. I don't have all this. I haven't seen the prosecution's case on it and the defense case. I understand bits and pieces that are in the books and some photos, but it's very hard for me to determine which side is telling the truth. I just don't know. So, and I don't know, again, if I were one of those poor jurors in there, also not being a person that I'm not very smart on cars. Okay. Cars, and a car is a car, I drive them. That's it. That's not my thing. All right. So I need experts to tell me, but then again, what if the experts are telling you two different things? Which way do I go? So I don't know if I do any better than the jury. And, at a certain point, as the author of the first book pointed out, their eyes just glazed over and they started going, because they can't understand it. They can't retain the information. They don't know. And what got him convicted? Well, I think the coughing syncope, they did not buy that. I think that was a big issue because they had not heard of it. It seemed too weird to believe that you sit there and go, and then you pass out. And it seems to me that you wouldn't pass out that quickly, that you would have to have quite a coughing fit, quite a big coughing fit to pass out. And that is one of the questions here. Did he have that big a coughing fit? And if he was having that bad a coughing fit, why didn't he pull off the road? Because let's look at the road. Could he pull off the road? Because if he knew he had some issues with coughing and if he passed out while he was coughing before, let's see where the road is. All right, let's look at it. Oh boy. Yep, he could pull over. There's quite a few places he could pull over. I don't think he couldn't pull over. There might be a guardrail there. Wait a minute. Which way was he coming? Hold on a second. I forget which way he was coming. That one always gets me confused because I can't tell. It's on. Oh yeah, he's coming. Okay, he's coming on the left side of that road from the bottom. Okay, so look on the left. Do you see there's I think that's the right, but okay. Yeah, that's the right side. Okay, the left side, if you're looking at, let me go to the other guy's picture. Which one? This one. All right. So that's where he's coming down. He has a shoulder. He could have pulled over on the shoulder. Why doesn't he pull over on the shoulder? If he thinks he's got problems coughing so badly that, first of all, if you cough really badly, you might not be able to keep your eyes open to focus on the road. And if you know that you have problems coughing so badly, you might pass out. I think if you start coughing more than you pull over and get off the road, you moron. So that's another question. How bad was it that he couldn't pull over? I mean, why couldn't he pull over? That's an issue. So yeah, I mean, so I think they didn't believe the cough thing. I think they didn't believe that. I think that the fact he did not try to save the kid. Once he got out of the water, he was more interested in going to his wife and telling her he killed the kids than saving the kids. I think that really did him in, because that made people think, and kept asking for a cigarette. It's like, oh, my 3 kids are dead. Can I have a cigarette? They didn't say it that way, but his behaviors were so odd after the fact that they did not think he cared about the kids enough. So I think they didn't believe, and they also knew that he had these issues. And then when Greg King came in and said he wanted to kill the kids, it didn't help. So I think both times, I think they didn't like him. They didn't believe the cough stuff. His behaviors, I think, told them that he probably killed them on purpose. So I think that's why they found him guilty both times. again, I don't know if I were in there, would I exactly think the same thing? I mean, to me, there's a tiniest reasonable doubt. I'd have to go through a whole trial to decide whether I would have gone along with the guilty, finding him guilty. Although I personally lean heavily that direction. I do. What? The writer lady said she found him to be a loser, so why have 3 kids? Because tons of people have 3 kids. Being a loser does not have anything to do with you having 3 kids. She had 3 kids with him too. So the wife made her choices as well. I mean, I always say, don't have kids unless you're ready to have children. Use birth control, which we have a ton of out there in this world today. And if you're really paranoid, you use double birth control. You can always go on the pill and use a condom. You can do things like that. And you say, wait, I'm not going to make a mistake. And so even if you married, you say, I'm going to wait 2 years. I always say 2 years after marriage. Wait 2 years to get married. Wait 2 years after marriage. Wait, because you want 2 years before you marry to make sure they're not a loser. 2 years after you marry the person, make sure they're not a loser. And then you have, after 2 years of marriage, you both think each other as pretty good people, and you have finances that can support having children and a reasonable stability, go ahead and have kids. But yeah, I mean, but most people don't do that. And so clearly, both of them chose to have children, whether carelessly or on purpose. So both of them are at fault for having 3 kids under those conditions. So yeah, it's not just him. She made those choices too. Who's remarrying? He's in prison. He's going to prison the rest of his life. He's not going anyplace. At this point. Let's see, any other choices here? Yeah, I mean, I say when we get into the marriage issues, is he all the bad guy? Is she perfect? Is she the perfect person, or did she have issues too? I don't know. All I know is there were 3 children who didn't have much choice. And that's where it comes down to. And everybody's got issues. Homicide is not a proper choice when you have issues, but some people choose that. The question is, did he choose that? And there are those who still think he didn't. That he truly had this guy truly had a coughing fit and passed out. Boy, he's an unlucky sucker. That he passed out just in the place where his car would go into the water. I mean, if you look around, there's a lot of land around there that he could, there's only this one dam. He could have just passed out and rolled off off onto farmland. But no, he went right into the drink, I mean, it's like, what? He's got bad luck, So, yeah. So anyway, I'm going to say that's it for tonight. Thank you for being here. For people who are, I don't know if people from Australia and New Zealand and those areas, like, yeah, you could come to the show. It's always great. And I love doing cases, from both those countries because they're really interesting. And when I can't get anything, something's going on all day long, I'm going to do a late show. That's a great location for me to pick a show out of, pick a case from. So that was really good. So anyway, that's it. And I'll see you guys at the Hangout during the week. Most likely on Thursday, and then we'll see what else happens this week. There's a bunch of cases which are, well, we'll see how things go, and also how everything goes in the world. Yeah. So, or wait a minute, Oregon showed up representing. All right. So anyway, that was your first live? I know your name, so glad you were here. So good night, everybody, and I will see you soon. I'm glad the Verizon, even if it was a little choppy in the beginning, didn't do me in. So anyway, again, new to the channel, hey, subscribe, keep this thing going. Thank you for being here. Bye.